The moment the waiter set down the untouched plates for the third time and the silence stretched so tight it hurt, Mark realized this Christmas blind date was dying right in front of him, and he had no idea how to save it. If this story pulls at your heart even once, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us until the very end, because sometimes the smallest voice carries the biggest miracle. Mark hadn't planned to be here. He especially hadn't planned to be here on December 23rd, in a softly lit restaurant filled with couples leaning close, laughing over candlelight, while snow drifted past the windows like a reminder of everything he'd lost. But his sister had insisted. "You can't spend another Christmas alone with just takeout and old movies," she'd said. "Lucy needs to see you smile again." And Lucy, his 6-year-old daughter with eyes too wise for her age, had nodded solemnly, sealing his fate. So here he was, sitting across from Anna, a kind-looking woman with a polite smile that never quite reached her eyes. She stirred her coffee even though it was already cold, and Mark kept adjusting his sleeves, wondering why every sentence felt like it landed wrong. They talked about work. He mentioned being a contractor. She talked about accounting. He mentioned Lucy. She smiled, said children were wonderful, then quickly changed the subject. Each pause grew heavier than the last. Lucy sat between them, swinging her legs beneath the table, quietly coloring on a placemat. Mark had worried bringing her along would be awkward, but Anna had insisted it was fine. "I love kids," she'd said over the phone. Now, though, Mark could feel the tension thickening, like the air right before a storm. Mark's mind drifted, as it often did, to the Christmas 3 years ago when everything changed. His wife, Emily, had been laughing in the kitchen, flour on her nose, Lucy perched on the counter helping decorate cookies. By New Year's, Emily was gone, taken suddenly by an aneurysm that gave no warning and left no mercy. Mark had learned how quiet a house could be after that, how heavy the nights were, how Christmas lights felt less like joy and more like reminders. Dating had been impossible at first, then awkward, then exhausting. Every woman seemed to see either a broken man or a responsibility they weren't ready for. Mark didn't blame them. Some nights, he wasn't sure he was ready either. Back at the table, Anna checked her phone again. "I should probably head out soon," she said gently, already halfway gone. Mark nodded, forcing a smile. He felt stupid for trying, guilty for hoping. Lucy stopped coloring. She looked at Anna, then at her dad. Then she leaned close to Mark's ear and whispered, her voice barely louder than the clink of silverware, "She's not the one, Daddy." Mark blinked, surprised, but before he could respond, Lucy slid off her chair and walked around the table. She stopped beside a woman sitting alone at the next table, a woman who had been quietly pushing food around her plate, her shoulders slightly hunched as if she were trying to disappear. Lucy looked up at her with complete confidence and said, "Hi. My name is Lucy. Do you want to come sit with us?" The woman looked startled. "Oh, Her eyes lifted to Mark, apologetic and uncertain. Mark stood up immediately. "I'm so sorry," he said. "She's very friendly." The woman laughed softly, a sound that seemed to warm the space around them. "That's okay. I could use some friendly." She hesitated, then added, "My date just cancelled. I was about to leave." Anna stood too, relief clear on her face. "Actually," she said kindly, "I think this worked out perfectly." She wished Mark a Merry Christmas and left without another glance. Lucy beamed, triumphant. "See, Daddy, now you're not sad." Mark looked at the woman again. Up close, he noticed her gentle eyes, the faint smudge of mascara she hadn't bothered to fix, the quiet strength in the way she held herself. "I'm Mark," he said. "And this is Lucy. I promise she doesn't usually abduct strangers." "I'm Claire," she replied. "And I'm glad she did." They pulled up a chair. Conversation flowed, not forced, not careful, just honest. Claire talked about being a pediatric speech therapist. Mark talked about Lucy, about Emily, about how hard it had been learning to be both parents at once. Claire listened without flinching, without trying to fix him. When Lucy talked about school and missing her mom, Claire knelt beside her and listened like it mattered, because it did. Snow fell heavier outside. The restaurant grew louder, warmer. Time slipped by unnoticed. Claire admitted she'd almost skipped coming out that night. "Christmas makes everything louder," she said. "The loneliness, I mean." Mark nodded. "It does. But sometimes it also brings surprises." Lucy yawned, resting her head on Mark's arm. "I like Claire," she murmured sleepily. "I told you." Mark smiled, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, hope that didn't hurt. They walked out together into the cold night. Claire hesitated at the door. "I don't want to rush anything," she said. "But I'd like to see you again. Both of you." Lucy grabbed her hand before Mark could answer. "We can make cookies," she said seriously. "Daddy burns them, but Mommy used to help me. You can help now." Mark's breath caught. Claire's eyes shone, but she didn't pull away. "I'd like that," she said softly. That Christmas wasn't perfect. There were still empty spaces, still moments that hurt. But there was laughter again. There were cookies that burned and cookies that didn't. There was a little girl who trusted her heart, and a man who finally learned to trust it too. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks or flawless first dates. Sometimes it comes through a whisper from a child who sees what adults are too afraid to hope for. And sometimes, the family you thought was broken finds a new way to be whole. If this story touched you, remember to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in second chances, because miracles often arrive when we least expect them, and they almost always come wrapped in love.